Throughout history, music has provided a way to show the people's reaction to historical events. These two wars, World War II and the Vietnam War, are no different. Both are a prime example of people creating music to speak their opinions and even create change. While studying the effects that these wars had on music, the following methods will be used in order to gather and organize data more effectively. This will cover the popular music of each war and its time period, share how some songs were made, show how people's opinion determined and was swayed by popular music, and ask the question, how did music change throughout the war? Before studying them, it is important to determine the definition of war songs. Christina Tomlinson of Campbell University described war songs as the lyrics must be released during a war and the lyrics must address a topic related to the conflict on the war front or back home. Also, an important factor in war songs are their themes. Themes of war songs include the draft, separation of loved ones, fulfilling duties for one's country, pro war ideals, isolationism, and subthemes such as drugs and civil rights, which shows to be more important during the Vietnam War. Plato spoke about this very subject in his book called The Republic. He said, when modes of music change, the state always change with them. Music, combined with a people's opinion, can be used as a force for change. In 1939, the war cry was shouted, and over 100 million went to war. Already, this war would be the most widespread in history because it involved over 30 countries. During a time of technological change and government propaganda, it was hard for Americans to decide who and what they believed. The technological change in World War II came as a result of the radio. This device changed the way that people all around the world received and spread information. Because it was so popular, every day the number of radios in American homes increased. In 1935, 67% of homes in America had a radio, but by 1945, it had grown to 89%. Radios also gave many an opportunity to hear music for themselves. This gave the music business a chance to spread its songs and the ideas they were writing about. Eventually, this would greatly shape how people began to receive war songs throughout the war and affect the people's opinion. One major part of World War II related to music is the transition from isolationism to pro war songs. Before Pearl Harbor, Americans thought that they should worry about themselves instead of getting involved with other affairs. These ideas came from World War I, in which people also thought that the U.S. should have an isolationist mindset. A song very popular in World War I was Over There. This song was very popular because of the isolationist references. Later, during World War II, another song was created to also show isolationist views and show reverence for Over There. The title of the song was Go Back Over There, showing the listener that the isolationist views were still alive. Even though America had their minds set in an isolationist point of view, it took one event to change that. On December 7th, 1941, a Navy base in Hawaii was attacked by the Japanese Air Force. Many were killed and thousands were injured. This single event caused Americans to change their view on the war. After being attacked at home and feeling the effects, most Americans changed to pro war ideals. This change led to nationalist views of music and entertainment and led even to racism. Songs such as We're Gonna Have to Slap the Dirty Little Jap and I've Got to Scrap with a Jap showed the listener America's view of the Japanese after Pearl Harbor. Themes that spoke of hope also showed up in many songs during that time. As the American people saw the war ending, they saw hope on the horizon. This is the main reason that songwriters began to write about hope. A song popular for containing this theme was The White Cliffs of Dover. This song spoke of the world after the war and how all things would be restored. The best selling, most listened to pop songs existed outside of time and place. This situation frustrated many in government looking for a stirring, chart topping war song. But most Americans, men and women, in civvies or uniform, preferred to stay with the tried and true familiarity of the love song. This quote tells us that all Americans really wanted was to sing about hope, love, and family during World War II. In a time where the government wanted to take advantage of people's vulnerability to music, Americans showed that even though most were pro war, they were also ready to declare victory in order to return to a world without war. In 1955, the Vietnam War began, and so did a time where people no longer longed for war. But during the Vietnam War, the amount of protest songs eclipsed the amount of pro war songs, which were previously popular. There were many reasons for the increase of protest songs, but most of the blame is put on the expansion of media through television. In the 1960s, the television became more and more popular. The explosion of the consumer television helped people to decide how they felt about the war in a forceful way. People actually began to see what they had only seen in pictures. This eventually caused the transition from pro war songs to protest songs. The people's opinion did something interesting during the Vietnam War, where maybe a song would change people's opinion or cause them to have more confidence in their opinion. The people changed the music. Musicians had not really spoken out against the Vietnam War until the American people changed their minds to an anti war opinion. Thus, the popularity of anti war songs grew. Lee Anderson said this about music during the Vietnam War: it shaped and articulated public opinion in unprecedented fashion. In 1969, the protest movement's greatest names came together to protest the war in Vietnam. Thousands of supporters came to listen and marvel at the sight of such a thing. The song, I Feel Like I'm Fixin' to Die Rag, opened up Woodstock and became one of the most well-known protest songs of that time. In closing, it is easy to see how people's opinion can affect music during war. From the isolationist era in World War II, when songs like Go Back Over There was released in order to state Americans' opinion on the war at that time, to after Pearl Harbor, when people's hate of the Japanese were shown in popular songs like We're Gonna Have to Slap the Dirty Little Jap and I've Got to Scrap with the Jap. Even during the Vietnam War, when anti-war songs were released, such as I Feel Like I'm Fixin' to Die Rag, in order to convey America's growing hatred toward war. Throughout history, music has provided a way to show the people's reaction to historical events. These two wars, World War II and the Vietnam War, are no different. Both are a prime example of people creating music to speak their opinions and even create change.